Hey guys, it's Scott with Scottie B Cards, and in this video I cracked some BGS graded cards and sent them to PSA. Before I show you the cards, I want to discuss why I made this conscious decision to crack some Beckett graded cards and send them to PSA. Historically, I've been a huge Beckett fan and I've supported them and always talked about them and said they were undervalued in comparison to PSA and all of this, but lately the gap between PSA and BGS is growing larger and larger. And I'm going to be making a video this next week where I actually talk about that exact topic and discuss the bigger picture of this. But either way, I decided to send two cards into PSA that had significantly more upside in a PSA slab versus the Beckett slab they were in. And this has been a pretty big change over the last 3 years. Prior to 2019, 2018, BGS has always been the superior grading company when it comes to resale value, or at least considered the top dog in the game, even if a PSA 10 may have gone for a tiny bit more, a fraction of the cost more than a PSA 10. And we've seen that completely change. And that's probably due to the fact that Beckett just hasn't maintained pace with their competition when it comes to pricing, turnaround times, when it comes to being open and transparent, and they just aren't really great with social media presence compared to PSA and particularly SGC over the last 12 to 24 months. And for this purpose, they lost a ton of market share. On top of that, competitors have come into the space, whether they've stuck or not. We have HGA, we have CSG, we have a bunch of other grading companies. Some you can look as reputable, some are not reputable, but either way, they've had more competition and it's chiseled away at their values. And for that reason, I decided to send two cards in. I wanted to crack them myself, send them in and see how it went. And I do think Beckett could be in trouble over the next few months and years, and I'll discuss that. But other than that, these are the two cards I graded and why. I have conveniently covered the grades for right now, but I'll show them in just a moment. I want to explain why I sent each of these individual cards in. The very first one was this Joey Votto. This is Joey Votto's true rookie card. This is from 2002 Bowman Draft. It's his chrome parallel. This is number 250. It's the X-Fractor. It's a great card. And this was a BGS 8 with no subgrades. And when I looked at the card, there was no major indents on the surface. There were no corner dings. The corners look super solid. I will show you as I'm talking. And there was no edge wear. And so I figured it was either off left to right, and that's why it got the 8, and that's why it wasn't labeled, or it was because of that X-Fractor line right there, or a combination of the two, which is why it got the 8. Either way, I thought it had a very good chance of getting a PSA 8 or 9 because there was no real issues with the card that I could see through the slab. And a BGS 8 just doesn't go for what it used to go for. But I figured if I can even get a PSA 7 or a PSA 8, it's a pretty good bump for that PSA 8 versus a BGS 8. So I sent this card in hoping for a PSA 8 or PSA 9. The next card is this Mike Trout. This was a BGS True Gem, and this card was in excellent condition. But this card, I purchased it raw off of eBay. Its centering looks like it's off left to right, but that's actually how all of these cards are. You can go look at PSA 10s and they all have that centering. The corners are literally perfect. They have no issues. The edges are perfect. The surface always on these cards has some small print lines, but overall it's nothing crazy. So I thought this one had a good chance at a 10. I sent this one to BGS when I first got the card because again, back in that time, BGS was better. And this is probably, I believe, 2017 or 2018, right around there. I also purchased a second copy, sent that to PSA that was in worse condition at a corner ding. And I didn't want it to get a BGS 9, so I sent it to PSA and I got a PSA 10. So I figured if I can crack this one and cross it to a PSA 10, I'd be happy. This goes in a BGS 9.5 for like $800 to $1,000. In a PSA 9, it's like $600 to $650, and a PSA 10, it's like $1,500 to $1,800. So really big potential for an increase and not a huge decrease necessarily. So I figured it would be worth a shot. And we've seen in recent days PSA 9s like this one here and BGS 9.5s like that one there of the same card, they are starting to become very similar in price. Sometimes the PSA 9 actually sells for more than the BGS 9.5. It's just kind of getting to a point where the risk is more attractive. PSA is lowering their grading costs and they're turning around cards really quickly. I sent these cards, I think, last week of November and I got them back the second week of December. So it took like 2.5 weeks from door to door, maybe 3 weeks, and that was $50 a card. So it wasn't cheap, but it was worth it. I essentially purchased this with the ugly BGS label off of an auction online and instantly knew I wanted to send that one to PSA. The Trout, on the other hand, I debated for years and years to crack, and I finally did. One thing I do want to say about BGS kind of succumbing to their competition is I've always liked BGS slabs better. They are bulkier, they're more sturdy, You can't shake it and move the card. I do like the metallic looking flip. You can see if it's a BGS 9.5, it's gold. If it's a BGS 8.5 to 9, it's going to be the silver. If you look at anything below an 8.5, it's actually going to be in this ugly, ugly color. And that's partially why BGS has suffered. You know, PSA, these are their two highest grades, a PSA 9 and a PSA 10. If you're new to the hobby, extremely simple, extremely straightforward, which is why a lot of people gravitate towards them. Plus, if you look at the slabs in comparison, these are 3 different grades, 3 different colors, while these have the exact same look. Only difference is a tiny little bit of text. Either way, even if it's a high grade or a low grade, you know what you're going to be getting. The labels are usually consistently the same thickness. We've seen some weird stuff with Bowman Chrome cards that are thicker with an inner sleeve, but overall, they just are more appealing looking to a lot of collectors. For me, I've always liked the BGS case. I will continue to like it, but I can't deny the value that PSA provides over BGS, even in a lower grade. So one thing I don't like about PSA, listen to this. You can hear the card bouncing around. That's a PSA 10. Hopefully I didn't just make it a PSA 9, but it's one of those things where the card moves around. BGS, nothing. So that's one thing I haven't loved about PSA. But either way, even with their shortcomings, PSA does a good job of branding. PSA's done a really great job of taking the space of being the premier grading company, and they haven't let go. It's kind of like Peloton in the exercise space. They've really done a good job of establishing themselves as the premier brand, and we see that with the way they advertise. Even SGC lately has eaten into BGS's space, and because of that, we have seen BGS lose market share and value. That's why I sent these cards there. I'm still a BGS fan. I want to say that. I will say I wasn't going to sell these cards regardless of what they graded. I just wanted to see how it went cracking this Joey Votto, and I wanted a second card for the sample, so I cracked this Mike Trout because I thought about it for a long time. And overall, it was really straightforward to crack a BGS case, and we'll look at the grades right now. I also did grade this card. I think I paid like $700 for it, so pretty expensive. But I got this one raw. It looks really good, and it came back a PSA 9. So for a card like this, Paul Goldschmidt, that's numbered to 60. He doesn't have a Chrome rookie. Well, it doesn't have a Topps Chrome rookie. He has Bowman Chrome rookie card. But for Topps Chrome, he does not have one, and so this is basically one of his best cards that exist for rookie cards by themselves. Obviously, there's Bowman Chrome autographs and so forth. But really great Paul Goldschmidt. So wanted to show that one off. Great to see a card that's been raw for 11 and a half years get a PSA 9, especially with black borders like that. But now let's get over to these cards. This one I paid, I think, $350 for, and I think it has huge upside as Joey Votto will make the Hall of Fame in my personal opinion. It was a BGS 8. You can see that print line. You can see the centering's off and maybe some slight surface scratches. And this one pulled a PSA 8. That is an absolute win in my personal opinion, because I would much rather have a PSA 8 versus a BGS 8, and I know the market would also feel the same way. The next one was this Mike Trout. This Mike Trout was, again, a true gem. It looks great. The only thing is I cracked it. There is some slight print lines that run in terms of belt down right here. But other than that, the card's in good condition, and it pulled a PSA 9. So that's just the way the cookie crumbles. It's funny because I sent the card I thought was in worse condition to PSA. Had a better surface, but terrible corners. That got a PSA 10. This one got a PSA 9, and that's just how it is. So this one I'm okay in a PSA 9 because, again, I'm not going to be selling it. I actually have the gold refractor numbered to 50 and the black refractor numbered to 25 of this card, and I'll eventually buy the refractor numbered to 199. And so I just like the set. Bowman Sterling's one of my favorite ever. This card's extremely hard to find. But overall, I don't know if this was a win or a loss, but I do think you're going to start seeing a lot of cards cracked and sent to PSA just because the value there, it makes so much sense right now. So anyways, those are my grades and what I pulled. I just wanted to share with you all and share my thoughts. I will be releasing a much more in-depth video on the state of grading, essentially, coming out this next week, so stay tuned for that. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these grades. Do you think they're fair? If you like BGS versus PSA? And other than that, I will see you in the next video.